The nanny thought she was just comforting a scared little boy at the park, wrapping her arms around him as strangers closed in. What she didn't realize, his father was a mafia boss who kept his son hidden from the world. And the moment she stepped between them and danger, she became part of his hidden empire. Lena's fingers were still cramped from scrubbing floors all morning when she felt the crumpled $20 bills in her jacket pocket. Real money. Cash she didn't have to split with an agency or explain to a landlord who was already 2 weeks past patient. The job had come through a handwritten note slipped under her apartment door. Nanny needed. Weekdays, 3 to 7 p.m. $200 per day, cash. Discreet family. Call if interested. She'd called. A man with a voice like gravel and silk had told her to meet them at Riverside Park. Bench number 7. Bring nothing. That was 4 days ago. Now, she sat on that same bench, watching 6-year-old Noah Romano chase pigeons with the kind of intensity only small children possessed. His dark curls bounced with each leap, and every few minutes, he'd look back at her, not smiling, just checking, making sure she was still there. Miss Lena, he called, pointing at a pigeon that had landed on the fountain's edge. That one's brave. Just like you, she called back, though she wasn't sure it was true. Noah wasn't like other children. He didn't laugh easily, didn't make noise. When his father's driver had dropped them off, Noah had gripped her hand so tightly her knuckles went white. The driver, a man built like a filing cabinet with eyes that registered everything and revealed nothing, had said only, "For a clock pickup. Don't be late." Lena checked her phone. 3:47 p.m. The park was nearly empty. A jogger passed. An elderly woman fed ducks by the pond. Autumn leaves skittered across the path like nervous whispers. Then she heard the engines. 2 black SUVs rolled up to the curb, slow and deliberate, their windows tinted so dark they looked like holes cut into reality. Lena's stomach tightened. Something about the way they moved, synchronized, predatory, made her instincts scream. The doors opened. 4 men stepped out. They wore expensive suits that didn't quite hide the bulk underneath, not muscle but something harder, angular. One of them scanned the park with the methodical precision of someone who'd done this before. His gaze swept past the fountain, past the jogger, past. It landed on Noah. Lena saw the moment of recognition flicker across his face, saw his hand move toward his jacket. "Noah," she said, keeping her voice steady. "Come here, sweetheart." But Noah had already seen them. His whole body went rigid. The color drained from his face, and his small hands began to shake. He didn't run to her, he couldn't. Fear had frozen him in place, small and exposed in the middle of the open path. The men started walking toward them. Lena didn't think. She launched herself off the bench and reached Noah in 4 strides, dropping to her knees and pulling him behind her. His small body crashed into hers, and she felt him trembling like a leaf in a hurricane, his face buried against her shoulder. "It's okay," she whispered, wrapping her arms around him. "I've got you. You're safe." She looked up. The 4 men had stopped 10 feet away. They weren't looking at Noah anymore. They were looking at her, studying her with the cold interest of people who catalog details for a living. Her face, her clothes, the way she held the child. One of them, the youngest, with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow, pulled out his phone. He raised it, angling it toward them. He was taking a picture. "Can I help you?" Lena's voice came out stronger than she felt. Her heart was hammering against her ribs, but no one needed her to be brave. "This is a public park. You're scaring the child." The scarred man lowered his phone slowly. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Pretty thing, protecting the little Romano." His accent was thick, Eastern European maybe. "Brave. Or stupid." "I don't know what you're talking about." Lena shifted, keeping Noah completely behind her. "Please leave us alone. Tell Papa," the man continued, as if she hadn't spoken, "that Dmitry Volkov sends his regards. Tell him we see everything now, even the hidden things." The name meant nothing to Lena, but she felt Noah's grip on her jacket tighten until his knuckles must have hurt. The men stood there for another excruciating moment. Then, as suddenly as they'd arrived, they turned and walked back to their vehicles. Doors slammed. Engines purred. The SUVs pulled away, disappearing around the corner like sharks sinking back into dark water. Lena stayed frozen, her arms still locked around Noah. She could feel his heart racing against her chest, could feel tears soaking through her shirt. "They're gone," she whispered. "You're safe, Noah. I promise." But even as she said it, she knew it was a lie. Nothing about this was safe. Not the men. Not their recognition of Noah. Not the calculated way they'd photographed her. Not the fact that they'd called him Little Romano. What kind of businessman's son inspired that kind of attention? That kind of fear? Noah pulled back slightly, his dark eyes, so much older than 6, meeting hers. "You can't tell Papa," he whispered. His voice cracked. "Please, Miss Lena. If you tell him, he'll make you go away. Everyone goes away." Something in Lena's chest cracked open. This little boy, terrified and alone, thinking protection was something he had to hide. "I won't leave you," she heard herself say. "I promise." At 4 p.m. exactly, the filing cabinet driver pulled up. His eyes swept the park with professional efficiency before landing on them. If he noticed anything wrong, Noah's tear-stained face, Lena's rigid posture, the way they both kept glancing over their shoulders, he didn't comment. "Time to go home," he said simply. As they drove through the city, Lena watched Noah stare out the window, silent and small. She thought about the crumpled bills in her pocket, about her overdue rent and empty refrigerator, about how desperately she needed this job. But more than that, she thought about the way Noah had trembled in her arms, about the men who'd looked at him like he was a target, about a father who paid in cash and kept his son hidden. She pulled out her phone, fingers hovering over the search bar. Alessandro Romano. She hesitated. Something told her that once she looked, once she knew, there would be no going back to the simple story she'd told herself. No more pretending this was just a family that valued privacy. The driver's eyes found hers in the rearview mirror. Cold. Warning. Lena locked her phone and put it away. But that night, in her cramped apartment with its peeling wallpaper and questionable heating, she would search. She would find articles about shipping companies and real estate empires, about a man who appeared in society pages but never quite came into focus. And buried deep in a true crime forum, she would find a single comment. "Alessandro Romano doesn't exist in any database. He's a ghost. And ghosts don't have children." But by then, she would already be in too deep to run. The mansion didn't look like a home. It looked like a fortress pretending to be elegant. Lena had seen it before: iron gates, stone walls, security cameras that tracked their car from 3 blocks away, but she'd never been inside. The previous pickups had always ended at the gate, where another staff member would take Noah from her with barely a word. Tonight was different. "Mr. Romano wants to see you," the driver said, pulling up to the main entrance instead of the side door. "He's waiting in his study." Noah's hand found hers immediately. "Please don't go," he whispered. "I'm just talking to your father," Lena said softly, squeezing his fingers. "I'll see you tomorrow, okay?" But Noah's eyes said he didn't believe her. They said he'd heard that before. A woman in her 50s, gray hair pulled back severely, dressed entirely in black, appeared at the door.
"Come, Noah."
Bath time. Her voice was kind but firm, the voice of someone who'd been giving orders to children for decades. Noah released Lena's hand slowly, like letting go of a lifeline. As he disappeared up the curved staircase, he looked back 3 times. "This way," the driver said. The interior was all dark wood and darker shadows. Expensive paintings lined the walls. Originals, Lena suspected, though she wouldn't know a Rembrandt from a photocopied poster. The air smelled like leather and something else. Something metallic that made her think of old pennies. Or blood. "Stop it," she told herself. "You're being paranoid." But paranoia had kept her alive in bad neighborhoods and worse relationships. Paranoia was why she noticed the man standing in the alcove, perfectly still, watching her pass. Why she counted 3 more just like him positioned throughout the ground floor. Businessmen didn't need this much security. The study door was already open. Alessandro Romano stood behind a massive desk, silhouetted against floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the garden. He didn't turn when she entered.
"Sit," he said.
Lena remained standing. "I prefer not to." That made him turn. In person, Alessandro Romano was younger than she'd expected, maybe 40, with the kind of sharp features that photographs never quite captured. His suit probably cost more than her yearly rent. But it was his eyes that held her attention. Gray like winter storms, tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "The park," he said simply. "Tell me what happened." Lena's mind raced. Noah's desperate plea echoed in her memory. "You can't tell Papa. He'll make you go away." "Noah had fun," she said carefully. "We fed the pigeons. He's a sweet child." Alessandro's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Miss Jen, I pay you $200 a day to take care of my son. I can pay you $5,000 to tell me the truth. Right now." $5,000. Lena's rent was $800. She was 3 months behind. But Noah's terrified face was worth more. "Nothing happened," she said. For a long moment, Alessandro studied her. Then he moved to a side table and poured amber liquid into 2 crystal glasses. He held one out to her. "I don't drink on the job," Lena said. "You're not on the job anymore. You're in my home, and I'm asking you to drink with me." His voice was silk over steel. "Please." She took the glass. The whiskey burned going down, expensive fire. Alessandro remained standing by the window. "My son is afraid of his own shadow. He doesn't sleep through the night. He flinches when doors open too quickly. The previous nanny quit after 2 weeks, claiming he was disturbed. He said the word like a curse. But today, the woman who watches the gates told me something interesting." She said Noah laughed. "Actually laughed when you pretended to be a pigeon." Lena's throat tightened. "So I asked myself," Alessandro continued, "what kind of woman takes a job that pays cash with no questions, works for a man she's never met, and protects a child she barely knows?" "The kind who needs the money," Lena said honestly. "No," Alessandro turned to face her fully. "The kind with a good heart. And that makes you dangerous." Before Lena could respond, the study door opened. A man entered without knocking, tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that matched Alessandro's. He moved like violence wrapped in expensive fabric. "We have a problem," he said, then noticed Lena. His eyes narrowed. "She shouldn't be here for this." "She's leaving," Alessandro said. But his gaze held Lena's. "Thank you for today. Marco will drive you home." The silver-haired man waited until Lena reached the door. Then she heard him say, low and urgent, she was at the park, with him, when they showed up. Volkov's men. They took pictures, Alessandro. They know about her now. Lena's hand froze on the doorknob. "How many?" Alessandro's voice had changed. Colder. Emptier.
4.
They approached the boy directly. She got between them. Silence. Then, find out everything about her. Everything. And double the security on her apartment building. Alessandro, you know what the family will say. Another liability. Another. She protected my son. Each word cut like a knife. That makes her mine to protect. End of discussion. Lena forced herself to keep walking, though her legs felt like water. Marco the driver appeared at her elbow, guiding her through hallways that suddenly seemed darker, longer. As the iron gates closed behind the car, Lena looked back at the mansion. In an upstairs window, she saw Noah's small silhouette watching her leave. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and typed, Alessandro Romano Mafia. The screen filled with results. Her blood ran cold. The black sedan appeared on Tuesday. Lena first noticed it parked across from her apartment building, a sleek, expensive thing that didn't belong in a neighborhood where cars came with rust and prayers. She told herself it was nothing. Rich people got lost sometimes. By Wednesday, the sedan had company. A motorcycle idled 2 blocks down when she walked to the corner store. The rider wore a helmet that hid his face, but his head tracked her movement like a predator watching prey. Thursday, the footsteps started. Lena had grown up in bad neighborhoods. She knew the difference between coincidence and being followed. These footsteps were deliberate, staying just far enough back to seem casual, close enough to remind her they were there. When she stopped, they stopped. When she turned corners, they turned too. She started taking different routes home. Started carrying her keys between her fingers like claws. Started checking behind shower curtains and under her bed before sleeping. Not that sleep came easy anymore. "You look like hell," her best friend Maya said Friday afternoon, sliding a coffee across the table of their usual diner. Maya worked 2 jobs too, night shifts at a hospital and weekend catering. They'd been friends since high school, back when they'd both believed hard work meant something. "Thanks," Lena muttered, wrapping her hands around the warm cup. "You really know how to make a girl feel special." "I'm serious, Lena. You've got circles under your circles. What's going on?" Lena wanted to tell her. Wanted to spill everything about Noah and Alessandro Romano and men in SUVs who took pictures like they were cataloging targets. But the words stuck in her throat. "New job's intense," she said instead. "Rich people have weird expectations." Maya's eyes narrowed. "This is the cash job? The one you won't tell me about?" "I signed an NDA." "Bullshit. Nobody makes nannies sign NDAs unless—" Maya stopped, her expression shifting. "Lena, what kind of family is this?" "The kind that pays my rent," Lena forced a smile. "I'm fine really. Just adjusting." But Maya knew her too well. "If you're in trouble—" "I'm not," the lie tasted bitter. "I promise." Through the diner window, Lena saw the black sedan roll past. Slowly. The driver's face was hidden behind sunglasses, but she felt his gaze like cold fingers on her spine. Maya followed her stare. "Friend of yours?" "Never seen them before, but that was the 4th time today." In Alessandro Romano's mansion, the atmosphere had turned glacial. The dining room table was surrounded by men in expensive suits, the kind of meeting where everyone smiled and no one was safe. Alessandro sat at the head, his face carved from stone, while his consigliere Carlo Marchetti presented surveillance photos. Photos of Lena, walking to the bus stop, buying groceries, standing at Noah's park bench. "Volkov's people have been watching her for 5 days, Carlo said, his silver hair catching the chandelier light. "They think she's significant. A mistress, perhaps. Or an informant. She's Noah's nanny," Alessandro said flatly. "They don't know that this came from Enzo, a lieutenant with slicked-back hair and ambition that showed in every movement. To them, she's a woman who appears from nowhere, gets close to your son, and throws herself between the boy and Volkov's men. That's not normal nanny behavior." "It's called courage," Alessandro said, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. "You should try it sometime." Enzo's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. Carlo cleared his throat. "Alessandro, we need to discuss options. The girl is a liability now. Volkov will use her to get to you, through Noah or through leverage. We've seen this before." "What are you suggesting?" The room went silent. Everyone knew what Carlo was suggesting. They'd all been in meetings like this before, where problems got solved permanently. "I'm suggesting we eliminate the risk," Carlo said carefully. "Make it look like an accident. She disappears, Volkov loses interest, Noah gets a new nanny. Clean." Alessandro's hand tightened around his wine glass. The stem creaked. "She saved my son. And now she's endangering him." Enzo leaned forward. "Every day she's alive, Volkov gets closer to understanding your security structure. She's a crack in your armor, boss. We patch cracks before they split." Alessandro stood abruptly, his chair scraping against marble. He walked to the window, looking out at the gardens where Noah sometimes played, always watched, never truly free. "Double her security detail," he said finally. "Discreet. She doesn't know they're there." "Alessandro," Carlo began. She protected my son when she had no reason to. When she knew it was dangerous, Alessandro turned, and something in his eyes made even Enzo look away. That earns her protection, not a bullet. We're not animals, gentlemen. We're businessmen who sometimes do terrible things. Let's not forget the difference. Carlo exchanged glances with Enzo. A look that said, "The boss is going soft. This won't end well." "As you wish," Carlo said smoothly. "But when Volkov makes his move, and he will, remember that mercy is expensive." "Everything worth having is," Alessandro replied. After they left, he stood alone in the empty dining room, staring at Lena's photograph. She was laughing in it, caught mid-smile at something Noah had said. She looked nothing like the women in his world. No designer clothes, no calculated beauty, no hidden agendas written in her eyes. She looked real. And that terrified him more than Volkov's entire organization. Lena knew something was wrong the moment she reached her apartment door. It was 11:47 p.m. She'd stayed late at the Romano estate because Noah had nightmares, something about dark cars and men with cameras. She'd held him until he fell back asleep, his small hand clutching her sleeve like an anchor. Now her own door stood slightly ajar. Just an inch. Enough to see darkness beyond. She'd locked it. She always locked it.
Triple-checked it.
Her phone was already in her hand, finger hovering over 911, when she heard it, a faint creak from inside. Like someone shifting their weight. Or waiting. Every instinct screamed, "Run." But her whole life was in that apartment. Her grandmother's wedding ring. The acceptance letter to nursing school she'd never been able to afford. Photos of her parents before the accident. She pushed the door open. The apartment had been destroyed. Methodically, purposefully destroyed. Her couch cushions were slashed open, stuffing scattered like snow. Kitchen cabinets hung open, contents swept to the floor. Her mattress had been flipped and gutted. Books torn from shelves. Clothes ripped from hangers. But nothing was stolen. Her grandmother's ring still sat in its box on the dresser, untouched. Her laptop remained on the counter, undamaged. This wasn't a robbery. It was a message. And there, pinned to the wall with a kitchen knife that was definitely not hers, was a single piece of paper. The handwriting was elegant, almost beautiful. "Keep the boy away from the park." Lena's legs gave out. She sank to the floor, surrounded by the ruins of her life, and for the first time in years, since her parents died and left her with nothing, she let herself break. Tears came hot and fast, her breath hitching in her chest. She didn't hear herself call the number Alessandro's driver had given her for emergencies only, didn't remember the words she spoke. But 20 minutes later, headlights flooded her apartment, and suddenly the filing cabinet driver was there, followed by two more men who moved through her destroyed home with professional efficiency. "Don't touch anything," one of them said, photographing the note. "Boss is on his way." "He doesn't need to," Lena started, but her voice cracked. "Too late," the driver said, not unkindly. "You called. That makes it his business now." Alessandro Romano arrived like a storm in expensive shoes. He filled the doorway of her tiny apartment, making it feel even smaller, his gray eyes taking in every detail with frightening speed. The slashed furniture, the scattered belongings. Lena sitting on the floor, shaking. The note on the wall. His jaw clenched so hard she heard his teeth grind. "Everyone out," he said quietly. The kind of quiet that made men twice his size move immediately. "Not you," he added, when Lena tried to follow. They were alone. Her destroyed apartment suddenly felt intimate in a way that made her acutely aware of her tear-stained face and rumpled clothes. "I need answers," she said, finding her voice. "No more lies. No more businessman bullshit. What are you?" Alessandro moved to the note, studied it without touching. "You know what I am. You searched my name. I saw it in your face days ago. Say it." He turned to face her fully. "I'm what people call when problems need to disappear. I run an organization that controls shipping routes, construction contracts, and half the judges in the city. I've done things that would make you run screaming, he paused. I'm trying very hard not to be my father. And failing. The honesty of it struck her harder than any lie. Why Noah? Lena whispered. Why is he so afraid? Something shifted in Alessandro's expression, a crack in the armor. His mother was killed 2 years ago.
Car bomb meant for me.
Noah was in the back seat. He saw everything, his voice went hollow. I kept him hidden after that. Homeschooled. Limited exposure. Thought I could protect him by making him invisible. But children need more than safety. They need. He gestured helplessly at Lena. Whatever you give him. The ability to laugh. To trust. The men at the park. They knew him. Dmitry Volkov. Russian syndicate. They've been trying to leverage Noah for months. Threaten him to control me. You got in their way, Alessandro's expression hardened. They think you're important to me now. That makes you a target. I'm nobody. You protected my son, he said it like a sacred oath. That makes you more important than you understand. Lena looked at her destroyed apartment. At this man who'd built an empire on violence and fear, who was trying desperately to save one small boy from the same darkness. I should quit, she said. Walk away. Pretend this never happened. You should, Alessandro pulled out his phone. I'll transfer $50,000 to any account you want. Enough to disappear. Start over somewhere Volkov will never find you. $50,000. A nursing degree. A different life. And Noah? Lena asked. Alessandro's silence was answer enough. She thought of Noah's nightmares. His desperate grip on her sleeve. The way he'd whispered, everyone goes away, like it was the only truth he'd ever known. I need to pack, Lena said. I'll have my men. I'm packing to move into your estate. If I'm a target anyway, I might as well be useful, she met his shocked gaze steadily. But we do this my way. Noah comes first. Not your war. Not your enemies. Him. Agreed. Alessandro stared at her like she'd sprouted wings. Then slowly, something like respect entered his eyes. Agreed, he said. Outside, in the black sedan, Volkov's man lowered his camera and smiled. The nanny was moving in. Perfect. The Romano estate had a rhythm Lena hadn't noticed from the outside. Men arrived at odd hours, always through the back entrance, always in pairs. They spoke in low voices behind closed doors, words like shipment and territory and insurance floating through the walls. The staff moved like ghosts, seeing everything and acknowledging nothing. Lena's room was in the east wing, 3 doors down from Noah's. It was larger than her entire apartment had been, with windows overlooking gardens that probably cost more to maintain than most people's salaries. She'd been there 5 days, and every night she woke up reaching for a light switch that was in the wrong place. But Noah was sleeping through the night now. That was something. Miss Lena, look. Noah stood in the doorway of Alessandro's private library, holding up a book with dragons on the cover. His smile was still tentative, like he wasn't sure he was allowed to be happy. Papa said I could read any book I want. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Lena glanced up from the window where she'd been watching 2 men load wooden crates into a van. The crates were stamped with a shipping company logo, but something about the way the men handled them, carefully, fearfully, made her think they didn't contain furniture. He's in a meeting, Noah said, following her gaze. His smile faded. The angry kind. Before Lena could respond, raised voices erupted from Alessandro's study down the hall. A door slammed. Heavy footsteps approached. Enzo emerged first, his face flushed with rage. He didn't even glance at them as he stormed past. Carlo followed, looking grave, and then Alessandro, his knuckles white around a tumbler of whiskey, his expression carved from ice. He stopped when he saw Noah. The ice melted instantly, replaced by something softer, more fragile. Hey, Piccolo, he said quietly, crouching to Noah's level. Did you find a good book? Noah nodded, holding it up. It's about dragons who protect their treasure. Smart dragons, Alessandro said, touching Noah's cheek with surprising gentleness. Nothing wrong with protecting what's precious. His eyes flicked to Lena, then away. Why don't you go read in your room? I need to talk to Miss Lena. After Noah left, Alessandro's mask slipped back into place. Volkov hit one of our shipments an hour ago. Burned 3 trucks, killed 2 drivers, left a message carved into the survivor's chest. He downed the whiskey in one swallow. It started. What started? War. The word hung between them like a death sentence.
He's forcing my hand.
Wants me to retaliate, so he can justify escalation. But if I hit back, people die. If I don't, I look weak, and in my world, weakness is fatal. Lena watched this man, this killer dressed in silk, struggle with an impossible choice. What will you do? What I always do. Protect my family first. Everything else second. He set down the empty glass. There'll be more men here tonight.
Armed.
Don't be alarmed. I'm already alarmed, Lena said. I'm living in a fortress with a child who has nightmares about explosions. Alarmed is my baseline now. Alessandro's lips twitched, not quite a smile, but close. You should hate me. Hate this life. I should, Lena agreed. But I keep seeing you with Noah. The way you check on him at night. How your hands shake when you tuck him in, like you're afraid you'll break him. I'm terrified. I already have. The vulnerability in those words cracked something open in Lena's chest. This wasn't a mafia boss who ordered men killed. This was a father drowning in guilt, trying desperately to save the one person he loved more than power. You haven't, she said softly.
He's scared, yes.
But he's not broken. He laughs now. He asks questions. He's learning to feel safe again. Because of you. Because you let me in. Lena stepped closer, close enough to see the exhaustion etched into his face. When was the last time you slept? I sleep when Noah sleeps. That's not an answer. Alessandro looked at her, really looked at her, and Lena felt the air shift between them. Something dangerous and inevitable blooming in the space where fear should have been. You remind me what normal feels like, he said quietly. Before all this. When my biggest worry was passing university exams, not which of my men might betray me next. You went to university? Engineering. Graduated top of my class. His smile turned bitter. Then my father died, and I inherited an empire I never wanted. You don't say no to legacy. You just become it. Before Lena could respond, Carlo burst into the library, phone in hand. Alessandro.
Now.
Volkov's men are moving on the waterfront warehouse. The mask snapped back instantly. Alessandro became someone else, someone cold and calculating, someone who made decisions about life and death before breakfast. How many? 20. Maybe more. They're armed for a siege. Alessandro's jaw clenched. He looked at Lena, and she saw the apology in his eyes before he spoke. Lock yourself and Noah in the safe room. 3rd floor, behind a mirror. Code is Noah's birthday backwards. Don't come out until I get you. Alessandro. Please, just one word, but it carried the weight of everything unsaid. Trust me. Forgive me. Keep my son safe if I don't come back. Lena nodded. Alessandro touched her hand, just once, briefly, and then he was gone, Carlo at his heels, leaving her alone in a library that suddenly felt like a cage. That night, Noah slept in her arms while gunfire echoed in the distance. She held him close, humming lullabies her mother once sang, and tried not to think about Alessandro Romano standing in a warehouse, defending an empire he never wanted. Tried not to think about how much she'd started to care whether he came home. The warehouse attack had been a diversion. Alessandro returned at dawn, blood on his shirt collar. Not his own, he'd said, and eyes that had seen too much darkness. Volkov's men had retreated after minimal resistance, which meant they'd gotten what they came for. Information about guard rotations, supply routes, weaknesses in the Romano defenses. Someone had given it to them. Someone inside. Now, 3 days later, Lena stood in the mansion's kitchen watching Carlo and Enzo argue in hushed, vicious tones. They didn't know she was there, hidden behind the pantry door. She's changing him, Enzo hissed. He hesitates now. Questions orders. Last night, he let 3 of Volkov's men escape because she was in his head, making him soft. He's thinking about his son, Carlo said carefully. That's not weakness. It's suicide. Enzo's voice turned sharp. And that Nanny is the reason. She's a liability, Carlo.
Admit it.
What are you suggesting? Silence. Long enough that Lena held her breath. I'm suggesting we prove she's dangerous, Enzo finally said. Show Alessandro what happens when civilians get involved in our world. Volkov wants her? Let him try to take her. When Alessandro sees the chaos she brings, he'll cut her loose himself. Lena's blood ran cold. Before she could process what she'd heard, footsteps approached. She slipped out the back entrance, heart hammering. The field trip was supposed to be safe. Noah's tutor had arranged a private tour of the Natural History Museum, just Noah, Lena, and 2 bodyguards who looked like they bench-pressed small cars. Alessandro had been reluctant, but Noah's excitement had won him over. Please, Papa, Noah had begged. I want to see the dinosaurs. Miss Lena promised. So here they were, standing beneath a suspended T-Rex skeleton, Noah's eyes wide with wonder. Did they really exist? He whispered. Millions of years ago, Lena said, smiling. They ruled the whole world. What happened to them? Something they couldn't see coming. She squeezed his hand. But that's why we have museums, so we remember and learn and do better. One of the bodyguards, Marco, touched his earpiece, frowning. Boss wants to talk to you, he told Lena, holding out his phone. Is everything okay? Just take it. Alessandro's voice was tight. Lena, listen carefully. Don't react. Smile at Noah like nothing's wrong.
Can you do that?
She smiled at Noah, who was tracing his finger along the information placard.
Yes.
Enzo isn't answering his phone. Neither is the second unit that was supposed to meet you there. Something's wrong. I need you to take Noah to the museum storage area, employee access only. Lock yourselves in and wait for me. How long? The line went dead. Marco's expression had changed. He was scanning the museum now, hand moving toward his jacket. The second guard, Victor, had positioned himself between them and the exit. What's happening? Lena asked quietly. Not sure yet, but we're leaving.
Now.
They'd taken 3 steps when the lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in, dim, red, painting everything in shades of blood. Screams erupted from other visitors. In the chaos, Lena heard it. Footsteps. Too many. Moving with purpose. Run, Marco said, pushing her and Noah toward a staff-only door. Storage area, 3rd floor. Go. Victor pulled his gun. I'll hold them. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. Victor went down hard, and Lena saw them. 4 men in dark clothes, moving through the panicked crowd like sharks through water. One of them locked eyes with her. Dmitry Volkov, the man from the park. He smiled. Lena grabbed Noah and ran. Behind her, Marco's gun fired once, twice, then silence. She didn't look back.
Couldn't.
Noah was crying, terrified, but she pulled him up a maintenance stairwell, her nursing school anatomy knowledge kicking in. 3rd floor, storage, employee access. They burst through a door into a corridor lined with crates. Museum storage. She found a room filled with archived exhibits, Egyptian artifacts wrapped in protective plastic, and shoved a filing cabinet against the door. Miss Lena, Noah sobbed. The bad men? Show, baby. I've got you. She pulled out her phone. No signal. Thick museum walls. She tried Alessandro's number anyway. Nothing. Footsteps in the corridor. Testing doors. Lena looked around desperately. The room had one small window. Too high, too small for escape. Nowhere to hide except. She spotted a large sarcophagus display, empty and open. Noah, listen to me. You're going to get in there, and you're not going to make a sound. No matter what you hear. Promise me. I'm scared. I know, sweetheart. But you're brave. Remember the dragons? They protect their treasure. You're my treasure, she kissed his forehead. Don't come out until your papa or I tell you. Understand? Noah nodded, tears streaming down his face. She helped him into the sarcophagus, arranged protective foam around him, and gently closed the lid, leaving it cracked for air. The door handle rattled. Lena grabbed a bronze statue from a nearby crate, heavy, sharp-edged, and positioned herself behind the door. Her hands shook. She'd never hurt anyone in her life. But for Noah, she'd become someone else. The door crashed open. Dmitri entered alone, gun drawn. "Little Nanny," he said in that thick accent. "You run fast. But where is boy?"
Gone, Lena liegt.
The guards took him out the back. Dmitri smiled. "You lie badly," he advanced slowly. "Tell me where, and I let you live. You seem nice.
Pretty.
Maybe you work for me instead, yes. Go to hell." He laughed. "Spirit. I like this. But Romano's brat is." Lena swung the statue with everything she had. It connected with Dimitri's temple. He staggered, shocked, and she hit him again. Harder. He went down, gun clattering away. She grabbed it. Her hands shook violently as she pointed it at him. "Don't move," she whispered. Dmitri touched his bleeding head, looking at her with new respect. "You have fire, but you won't shoot. Not sweet Nanny." The museum window exploded inward. Alessandro came through it like an avenging angel, surrounded by his men. He took in the scene instantly, Lena holding the gun, Dmitri on the floor, blood everywhere. Their eyes met. She saw something flash across his face. Pride? Fear. Then he saw Enzo standing in the hallway behind his men, phone in hand, looking far too unsurprised by the ambush. Alessandro's gun rose with terrible precision.
You.
Enzo's face went white. "Boss, I can explain. You leaked the location." Alessandro's voice was death itself. "You let them through." The gunshot was quick. Enzo dropped without a sound. Lena turned away, ball rising in her throat. She'd just witnessed murder. And the man who did it was walking toward her now, gently taking the gun from her shaking hands. "Where's Noah?" he asked softly. She pointed to the sarcophagus. Alessandro opened it, and Noah launched into his arms, sobbing. Alessandro held him close, whispering Italian words Lena didn't understand, his whole body trembling. When he looked at Lena again, his eyes held horror, at himself, at what she'd witnessed, at what he'd made her become. She'd saved his son, and in doing so, had crossed into his dark world completely. There was no going back now. The attack came at 2:47 a.m., 3 days after the museum. Lena woke to an explosion that rattled her bones. The windows of her bedroom blew inward, glass raining like deadly confetti. She rolled off the bed instinctively, covering her head as another blast shook the mansion's foundations. Gunfire. Screaming. The sound of the iron gates being rammed.
Noah.
She ran barefoot through the corridor, smoke already filling the air. Emergency lights painted everything crimson. Men in black tactical gear rushed past her, Alessandro's men, moving toward the breach with military precision. Noah's door was already open. Empty. "Noah!" Lena's scream was swallowed by another explosion. The east wing was under assault, flames licking up the walls. She ran toward Alessandro's office, praying. She found them in the hallway. Alessandro had Noah pressed against his chest, weapon drawn, surrounded by Carlo and 5 other men. Noah's face was buried in his father's shoulder, small body shaking violently. "Lena." Alessandro's eyes were wild with relief. "Thank God. Carlo, get them to the cellar." "The cellar access is compromised," Carlo shouted over the gunfire. Volkov's men breached from the tunnels. "It's a full assault." "How many?" 30. Maybe more. "They want the boy, Alessandro. They're not leaving without him." Alessandro's face went cold. He handed Noah to Lena. "Wine cellar. Different entrance. Kitchen access."
Take him. Now.
What about you? I'm ending this, he grabbed her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Keep him safe. That's all that matters. Promise me. Lena nodded, throat tight. Alessandro kissed Noah's head, whispered something in Italian, then turned toward the gunfire, like a man walking into hell willingly. The wine cellar was accessed through a hidden panel behind the industrial refrigerator. Lena had seen staff use it once, hadn't thought much of it. Now it was salvation. She found Mrs. Chen, the gray-haired housekeeper, already there with 2 kitchen staff and a young maid who couldn't stop crying. The cellar was cold, dark, lined with expensive bottles that seemed obscene given the violence overhead. Miss Lena, Mrs. Chen said, pulling her close. Thank God. Is Mr. Romano? Fighting, Lena set Noah down gently. He hadn't spoken since the explosion started, just stared with those 2 old eyes. We have to stay quiet. Stay hidden. Above them, the battle raged. Footsteps thundered across the floor. Something heavy crashed. Furniture, bodies. She didn't want to know. The maid whimpered, and Mrs. Chen covered her mouth gently. Noah's hand found Lena's. She pulled him into her lap, covering his ears, humming the lullaby that sometimes helped with nightmares. But this nightmare was real. An hour passed, or maybe 5 minutes. Time lost meaning in the darkness. Then silence. Too complete. Too sudden. Lena's heart hammered. Had Alessandro won? Or had Volkov? The cellar door exploded open. 3 men descended the stairs, flashlights cutting through the darkness.
Not Alessandro's men.
These wore black masks, moved with the efficiency of professionals. Mercenaries. The lead one spotted them immediately. There, his accent was Russian. Get the boy. Mrs. Chen stepped in front of Noah. You'll have to go through me. The man shot her without hesitation. Mrs. Chen crumpled. The maid screamed. And something inside Lena, something she didn't know existed, ignited like gasoline meeting flame. She saw the wine rack. Saw the bottles, heavy, glass, filled with liquid that could burn if it had enough alcohol content. She grabbed a Barolo, hurled it at the lead mercenary's face. It shattered, soaking him. He laughed, until she grabbed the second bottle and smashed it against the stone wall, creating a jagged glass weapon. Run, she screamed at Noah. The boy didn't hesitate. He bolted up the stairs, the kitchen staff following. Lena swung the broken bottle at the nearest mercenary, catching his arm. He howled, grabbed her throat. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. The mercenary dropped, and there, silhouetted in the doorway, stood Alessandro. His suit was shredded, blood across his face, but his gun hand was steady. He shot the second mercenary. The third turned to run and took a bullet in the spine. Alessandro descended the stairs like death incarnate. He checked each body methodically, then turned to Lena. Are you hurt? She shook her head, unable to speak. Mrs. Chen was on the floor, breathing shallowly. The kitchen staff huddled in the corner, traumatized.
Carlo.
Alessandro shouted. Footsteps above. Get a doctor.
Now.
He pulled Lena up, checking her for injuries with hands that trembled despite their efficiency. You saved him again, Mrs. Chen. We'll live if we're fast, he cupped her face. You fought them. You could have run, but you fought. Lena looked at the bodies. At the blood on her hands, some hers, some theirs. At the broken bottle still gripped in her fist. I didn't think. I just protected what matters, Alessandro's voice cracked. I told you to keep him safe. You did. But at what cost? Before she could answer, Noah's scream pierced the air from upstairs. They ran. They found Noah in the entrance hall, frozen in terror. Dmitry Volkov stood behind him, one arm wrapped around the boy's chest, gun pressed to his small head. His face was bandaged from Lena's earlier attack, his eyes burning with hatred. End of the line, Romano, Dmitry said. You killed 20 of my men. Burned my warehouses. For what? This boy. He pressed the gun harder. Noah whimpered. He dies or you trade your life for his. Alessandro's gun lowered slowly. Done. No. Lena lunged forward, but Carlo grabbed her. You can't. It's always been heading here, Alessandro said quietly. He looked at Noah, and his whole face softened. Ti amo, Piccolo. Be brave. He started walking toward Dimitri, hands raised. Lena saw it happen in slow motion. Saw Dimitri's finger tighten on the trigger, not aiming at Alessandro, but at Noah. A final cruelty. Kill the child. Destroy the father completely. She didn't think.
Didn't hesitate.
She broke free from Carlo, grabbed Alessandro's dropped weapon from a fallen guard, and fired. The bullet caught Dimitri in the throat. His gun discharged, but into the ceiling as he fell backward, releasing Noah. Noah ran to his father. Alessandro caught him, held him, and over his son's head, looked at Lena with an expression she couldn't read. She'd killed a man, pulled the trigger, watched life leave his eyes. Her hands shook as she dropped the gun. It's over, Alessandro said, but his voice sounded hollow. It's finally over. The mansion burned behind them, sirens wailing in the distance. Lena sank to the floor, Noah safe in his father's arms, and realized she'd become everything she'd never wanted to be. A killer, a criminal, someone who chose violence. For a child who needed her. For a man she'd started to love. The coastal town had no name that mattered. It was the kind of place people passed through on their way to somewhere better, a collection of weathered houses, a marina with boats that had seen better decades, and a beach where the sand was more rock than softness. Perfect for disappearing. Lena had been there 6 weeks. Long enough to stop flinching at car doors slamming. Almost long enough to sleep through the night. Almost. She stood on the porch of the small blue cottage, watching Noah chase seagulls along the waterline. He wore rain boots too big for him, and a jacket that wasn't quite warm enough, but his laughter, real, genuine laughter, carried on the wind like a prayer answered. Miss Lena, he called, waving a piece of driftwood. Look, it's shaped like a dragon. It's perfect, she called back, smiling despite the ache in her chest. They'd left the mansion the morning after the siege. Not together, that would have been too dangerous. Alessandro had arranged everything with the cold efficiency of a man who'd orchestrated disappearances before. New identities. New papers. A trust fund in Noah's new name that would surface when he turned 18, managed by lawyers who asked no questions. Lena was now Emma Hartley, a widow with a young nephew. Noah was Ben. They had a small cottage paid through an LLC buried under 6 other LLCs. No traces. No connections. No Alessandro. The official story was that Alessandro Romano had died in the mansion fire. There'd been a funeral, closed casket, well attended by city officials and businessmen who probably knew exactly what he'd been. The Romano Empire had fractured within days, territories carved up by rivals, assets liquidated in complex legal maneuvers that would take years to unravel. Alessandro Romano had ceased to exist. But Lena still felt him everywhere. In the way Noah sometimes looked at the ocean with that particular sadness. In the envelope of cash that appeared under her door every month, always with fresh bills and never a note. In the black car she sometimes spotted at the edge of town, there and gone like a ghost. She told herself he was gone. That he'd taken his deal with federal prosecutors, rumored but never confirmed, and disappeared into witness protection or a foreign country, or wherever men like him went when their empires crumbled. She told herself she didn't miss him. She was a terrible liar. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Lena found it propped against the mailbox, a small black envelope, expensive paper, no postage.
Hand-delivered, then.
Her heart hammered as she opened it. You gave my son a life beyond fear. That's something no empire could buy. He's safe because of you. You're safe because of him. That's the only trade that ever mattered. Don't look for me. I'm ash and echoes now, and that's exactly where I belong. But know this. Every moment he laughs, every night he sleeps peacefully, Every dream he has of dragons and adventures, that's you. You saved him from becoming me. Thank you for protecting what I couldn't. Thank you for showing me what I'd forgotten. What it means to be human. No signature. No return address. Just words that carved themselves into her chest and refused to let go. Lena read it 3 times, then burned it in the kitchen sink, watching the paper curl and blacken. Alessandro was right. Some things were safer as ash. But that night, she went to Noah's room and sat on the edge of his bed, watching him sleep. The nightmares had stopped weeks ago. His small face was peaceful, one hand curled under his cheek, the dragon-shaped driftwood on his nightstand. Your papa loves you very much, she whispered. More than you'll ever know. He gave up everything so you could be free. Noah stirred but didn't wake. Lena kissed his forehead and returned to the porch, where the ocean stretched endless and dark. 3 months later, a small black car appeared outside the cottage. Lena's breath caught. She stepped onto the porch, heart racing, half expecting Alessandro to emerge. But the car was empty. The driver's door opened by remote, and inside, on the passenger seat, she found keys and a single photograph. The photo showed Alessandro from behind, walking away down an empty street somewhere warm and bright. Mediterranean, maybe. Or South American. Somewhere far enough that he'd never look back. His shoulders were relaxed in a way she'd never seen. No bodyguards flanking him, no weight of empire crushing him. He looked free. On the back of the photo, in handwriting she recognized, dragons don't hoard treasure forever. Eventually, they learn to let go. Lena pressed the photo to her chest, tears streaming down her face. He was alive. Safe.
Gone.
Exactly as it should be. She kept the car, a practical sedan, nothing flashy, perfect for a widow with a nephew. She burned the photograph too, though she memorized every detail first. That evening, she and Noah walked the beach at sunset. He collected shells and sea glass, chattering about the book he was reading, about wanting to learn to swim, about maybe getting a dog. Miss Lena, he asked suddenly, do you think Papa's happy? Wherever he is? Lena knelt beside him, brushing sand from his cheek. I think your papa is exactly where he needs to be, just like us. Will we ever see him again? She thought about the letter, the photograph, the black car that watched over them from a distance. Maybe, she said honestly, when the world is safer, when enough time has passed. But for now, we're his dragons, protecting the treasure he left behind. What treasure? Each other. Noah smiled, that brilliant, uninhibited smile that made every sacrifice worth it, and took her hand. They walked along the water's edge as the sun painted the sky in shades of amber and gold, and Lena realized something profound. Alessandro had given them the greatest gift a man in his position could offer. Not wealth, not protection, not even his presence. He'd given them freedom from his world, a chance to be ordinary, to laugh without looking over their shoulders, to live without fear. That night, as Noah slept peacefully in his room and Lena sat on the porch watching stars emerge, she whispered into the darkness. Thank you. The wind carried her words away, and somewhere, in a Mediterranean cafe or a South American market or a distant city where no one knew his name, maybe Alessandro Romano heard them. Maybe he smiled. Maybe he was finally at peace. The hidden empire had ended not with bullets or betrayals, but with a poor nanny's courage and a mafia boss's love for his son. It had ended with the hardest choice of all. Letting go. And in that letting go, all 3 of them had found something infinitely more valuable than power. They'd found freedom,